it was 2015, and I'd been rehired by a CEO and founder of a software company out of Colorado Springs to come back a second year for his annual conference and to build a keynote. And first conversation, he said, I understand you would do some speech coaching. And I said, I do. And he said, I got a crazy idea. He said, what if I did like the opening keynote for the conference, and you do the closing keynote for the conference, and then you coach me, and we create our keynotes together and custom build it. And you tell people, I'm going to customize my keynote for you. I was excited, but I didn't really have that whole, like, I'm not going to build a whole big keynote, am I? But I love the guy, and I buy into it. I'm like, okay, I'm in, let's do it, right? And he said, okay, cool. Next thing you know, we're in Colorado Springs a couple months later, and we're sitting down. He said, Manley, I've been working on a theme. I think I got an idea. I said, all right, what is it, Vance? He said, so I'm in, YPO, right? EO, YPO thing. I go to the big conference. And he said, they had Ron Howard speak. Everybody know who Ron Howard is, right? Apollo 13, Opie, all those great things, but especially his directing he's known for. And he had just completed In the Heart of the Sea, which is his adaptation of the movie about the Essex, which is about the book Moby Dick was written about, right? So he does his speech, and then he has open Q&A. And some YPO person in the room raises their hand and says, Ron, I have a question. Yes, sir. He said, so you are known in the industry for taking A-list actors and putting them in horrendous conditions. So they feel it and we feel it, we see it in the film. And apparently this film is extraordinarily uncomfortable, and it was just horrible conditions, and you just put them through it. And it said, Ron, how do you make those A-list actors comfortable? And he said, my job is not to make it comfortable. My job is to make it worth it. And when Vance said that to me, I thought, damn, I wish I'd said that. When Henry heard it, he said, I think that's vertical lesson number 1 in your book. And it is. So Vance and I dove deep into that. We created a great keynote together, both of us, and all that. But a couple things, I just want some tactical ideas here I just thought of as far as the worth it. First of all, I know we all know this. Like, what's the worth it for your clients, right? But what I'm betting and what I know for myself is I am not going deep enough. I'm not asking enough good questions and shutting up, as Mark coaches me to do, to listen deeper. And then go to the next layer and the next layer. Like, oh yeah, we just want to make more money. Well, why do you want to make more money? And everybody's reason is different. I don't think we go deep enough into the worth it. And then for ourselves, I know for me, like throughout this whole business, there's been twice I've gone nearly absolutely broke in the business and just been on the floor. One of them was the pandemic. What would be worth it? Why do we keep going? Why are we doing this? Why are you going to kick out another book or grow your business or your first book or whatever reason you came to this room? I want you to, while we're in this beautiful place together the next few days, try to carve out some time to walk or do whatever you need to do and reflect on that and go deeper and really understand. And maybe you knew you were worth it when you started. I know I did. 14 years ago, I knew why I was doing it. But I think it's something we have to constantly go back to and renew at whatever stage we are in with our businesses. Why would it be worth it? For me, one of the most critical junctures with the worth it piece for me was 2014. So I was at Build-A-Bear, as Henry mentioned, and 2011. And by end of 2011, I jumped off the ship. 2012, I'm on my own full time. And I started, some people are like, oh, you're founder of Build-A-Bear. I'm not the founder of Build-A-Bear. Okay. And oh, you're self-trust funded. I am not self-trust funded. I wish. I bought 2 couches with our IPO. It's a long story, kind of the classic founder story. You were a little too late at the table with not enough cash and bad, but oh well. So 2012, I started running up my home equity loan. Maxed it out to $97,000. By 2014, I was tapped out on the home equity loan. And business wasn't coming in. As you know, you start, I want to be an author. I want to be a consultant. I want to be a speaker. It doesn't just start coming. It doesn't start flowing. And so I'm faced with this challenge. I start talking to friends. Friends and family were clear. They said, go get a real job. What is this like professional speaking thing? Anyway, just go get a real job. And I was like, and I heard that, but it never even made it anywhere near close to my heart. I know this is my calling. Be a good husband, first of all, the best I can be. Trying. Be an amazing father. That's number 2. And then being a good friend and family for my friends and people that I serve. But I feel like my calling is to be a speaker and deliver the messages of which I've been gifted. Which I think the most powerful one I've ever had come into my heart and mind is what you're going to hear about tomorrow night. So it's about commitment, by the way. So this ties to the worth it. And if you're thinking, I need to recommit to my business, or I'm ready to, I think I'm committed. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. But the word of peace was really bothering me in 2014. I didn't even have that phrase yet because that conversation with Vance hadn't happened, but I was asking questions like that. Well, why am I doing this? Would it be, am I ever going to make it? Is all this going to pay off? And the more I asked the question, the more my heart and mind took me back to an experience I'd had in my life. It was in 2008. In 2008, I was inspired to climb the great El Capitan in Yosemite, California again. I first climbed El Capitan in 1997. Raise your hand if you've been to Yosemite. Pretty much everybody. Raise your hand if you haven't been to Yosemite. Okay, oh, quite a few. Okay, I've been to over 500 mountain destinations around the world. Yosemite is my favorite place in the world. And if you want to write it off and go, well, it's because you're a climber, ask Henry. Favorite place in the world? Yosemite. Thank you. Henry's not a climber, I am. It doesn't matter if you like to climb or not, or if you roll in there in your wheelchair. Just a little to-do list, okay, bucket list, go to Yosemite. Trust me on this one. So I went back again in 2008, but I wanted to climb the nose. The nose of El Capitan was the first route ever done. It's up the prow that goes right up the middle of the route. So I had this goal, and I showed up and I picked a great partner, a man I'd met in St. Louis years before named Rich Copeland. I show up with a goal, and my friend Rich Copeland has a vision. Kind of like when I sat down with Mark and Henry and talked about my book for the first time. I got to go, I want to write a book. They go, let's think bigger. Get there, he says, Manley, that's a great goal. You could climb the nose. Everybody does the nose. Great route. About 3 days, we'll get up it. I know you can do it. He said, but Manley, I've got a vision of something bigger. So what are you talking about? He said, Manley, there's a route around the right side of El Cap. It's only been done once. I said, why has it only been done once? He said, because it's one of the hardest routes on the wall. I said, well, Rich, that means it's probably one of the hardest routes in the world, and I'm out. He said, you don't think you can do it, do you? I said, no, I don't think I can do it. He said, I know you can do it. Right? So then this little tug of war started happening. And then Rich started doing something. You can put in a lot of labels on this. And certain audiences, I say this is a leadership trait, right? And I believe all of us are leaders, whether you have a leadership title or not, or your own little one-man ship. We lead in the way we show up in our lives. Right? And we've all been in businesses or in rooms or in teachers or different situations where someone had a title of leadership, but they were not a good leader. They did not influence and impact. And we've all been around people who had no leadership title at all, who influenced and impacted and lifted people up and enriched people's lives in a very powerful way. Right? Rich is one of these people. He kept doing it. You know what they do? I think what a leader in that way does in that moment is they see something in you you don't see in yourself. And they shine a light on it. And that's what Rich did. He kept seeing it. He kept shining the light on it. Until it was so bright, I couldn't ignore it. Of course, finally, he talks me into it. So instead of packing up for 3 days on the wall, we're packing up for 14 days. We think it's going to take about 14 days to live on that wall and to make it to the top of that wall. Food, water, equipment, everything we need, about 500 pounds of gear, multiple bags. We shuttle them all to the base. We finally launch onto the wall. Day one goes well. And this wall in the southeast, the right side of El Capitan, is so sheer, there are no ledges to sleep on. So we bring our own ledges. We call it a portal ledge. It's like a hanging cot. You'll see a few photos and video tomorrow if you decide to stay for that and what that looks like. But if you can imagine, most of you have seen El Cap or maybe a big skyscraper, just imagine plastered to the edge of the planet on the portal ledge. So we're setting the ledge up at night and having a good time. That's really part of the big experience of why we do it, is to have that fellowship and to live on the wall, because the rest of it's a grind. It's just like a lot of what we do every day in your businesses, right? It's just not glamorous. It's not fun. You're not on the stage. You're grinding it out. Day one comes and goes. Day two comes and goes. Day three comes and goes. We're making progress. We get about halfway up the wall. Day four comes and we encounter the crux of the route. And we were told by the person who made the first ascent, they said, if you can make it through that pitch, that section of climbing, you're going to be done with the hard stuff. And then it merges into an older existing route that's much easier. And then we plan from there 7 days of easy street to the top. So Rich takes 4.5 hours to lead across the sections 200 feet to the left. Everybody goes to the left, you traverse to the left. What do you mean? Well, you climb, you go up, right? Sometimes the next step is to the lateral, right? It's not always up. Rich makes it across 4.5 feet. He lets out a good old, we're all from Kentucky and Missouri area, so he lets out a good hillbilly, woo! Celebrate that evening. Day five comes, and we're ready. We're thinking, okay, we're gonna finish up the second ascent. We had about 150 more feet to finish the second ascent of the new unclimbed, or the only climbed one-time territory on the route. And Rich gets about 120 feet above me. And he's on a move, getting ready to reach over and literally make the very last move of the second ascent. And bing! 30 feet, slams into the wall and destroys his ankle. I lower him back down to the portal edge. He said, man, I gotta have a beer, give me a beer. The Summit beers now. I'm like, okay, I give him a hot beer. The beer goes down very quickly. And Rich says, we need to talk. I said, we don't need to talk. I need your cell phone. We're calling for a rescue. How are we gonna get off of here? He said, we're not calling for a rescue. So what do you mean? He said, you can self-rescue us. I said, what are you talking about? By the way, if you've ever been to Yosemite, those of you who have, you ever stood on the southeast face, it's not just vertical, it's overhanging. So it feels like it's towering over you, right? So that means getting down that terrain, to me, seemed impossible. I could not conceive of it. He said, I know you can do it. He said, it'd be better style anyway. I said, better style? Now you're hallucinating. Brother, I gotta get you down. You think he talked me into it? Yeah, of course he did. Because I believe he gave me the second greatest gift that you can give a human being any day. He gave me belief. He kept telling me, he said, you don't believe you can do it, do you? I said, I don't know. I don't believe I can do it at all. I know that I can't do it. He said, I know you can. I know you can do it. That's what Mark does for me all the time. That's what my wife does for me all the time, my son Manley, my daughter Lizzie. I believe for all the people in our lives, especially your clients, in this world especially, we are hungry. Everybody needs encouragement more. You know, the second greatest gift. What's the first greatest gift? I believe it's love, right? So when you love your clients and they know you care, and maybe that's too touchy-feely for you, if they know you care and you pour that belief into them and you keep lighting that up for them, it makes a difference. So the next day, we start the self-rescue. We make the self-rescue. This harrowing, it was incredibly difficult. We had some friends on the ground, a friend with a telescope, and the gentleman who wrote in the guidebook for the Yosemite, the whole wall, who guided us from anchor to anchor to make sure we wouldn't rappel off the end of our ropes, and we were able to retrieve every bit of our equipment and Rich and get him to the base and back home unassisted, other than myself. I want to fast forward back to 2014, when I kept recalling this experience in the story. I said I was struggling in my business, completely out of money. And as you all know, when times are tough at work and money's tight, it impacts home, right? And vice versa. If home sucks, work's gonna suck. And I felt it. And Emily was feeling the stress, my wife, and kids can sense it. And I said, all right, honey, like, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? I mean, maybe I should quit this. I kept thinking about Rich, and I kept thinking back, and then it became crystal clear in May of 2014. I had finished a 2-day leadership retreat with the National Intelligence Agency. And I was not able to take my cell phone into the organization, so I get back to the car, turn the cell phone on, and get on the highway. And by the time I popped up on the highway, I glance over and I see a text message pop up. It said, did you hear about Rich? I was like, yeah. I love getting these texts because anytime I'd heard about Rich, it meant one thing. Rich has done something amazing in Yosemite, and I can't wait to hear about it. So I put my buddy on speakerphone, said, Josh, what's going on? He said, you didn't hear, did you? I said, what? He said, Manley, Sunday, Rich was, he wasn't even actually climbing, but he was up on a ledge about 300 feet up on a big, wide, as big as this room. And we don't know what happened, but somehow he slipped off the front of the ledge. He went about 300 feet, and we lost Rich. I was shocked and stunned, but I was shocked most by what I witnessed next. In 2014, I went to 2 funerals. The first was an executive of a technology company that every one of you have heard of. I was sitting about 10 rows from the front of the church with my wife, and about halfway through the funeral, she very quietly leans over and she says, the church is empty. It's empty. Look around behind me, and sure enough, the church is empty other than the first 10 rows. Now, this gentleman had a leadership title. He had a bunch of money. He had a beautiful house, team, all those things that we think of like, oh, influence, impact, leadership. What's it all about? Right? Rich's first funeral that I attended in St. Louis in a humble blue-collar neighborhood that he grew up in, packed with people, all the way around the building, just a line after line after line of people coming into the building to pay their respects to Rich and to share the impact and the legacy and his influence in their lives. And then the second funeral they had for him, Montecito Lodge in Sequoia. Some of you have been there, Kings Canyon, Sequoia. It's a lodge that specializes in helping people disconnect from technology and reconnect as human beings. He had gone there when he got laid off by the Ford Motor Company to help introduce people to the mountains. And they had a ceremony for him there. And then in El Cap Meadow in Yosemite, they had a third ceremony packed with people. And then on the internet, one person after another kept posting photos. There was one in particular that just hit me harder than any of them. A young man named Wade posted a photo of Rich and him on a trail. He said, "This man saved my life. He changed my life forever." And then at the Montecito Lodge, that entire summer, every single week when a new group would come in, they would gather the group around, and Rich used to do a crazy face and have a little ceremony he would do to welcome people to the camp. They would do the ceremony, and then they would place a little pebble on a makeshift memorial for Rich. We have a photo. It's a photo in my book, I believe, as well. And I haven't looked at it in a long time, to be honest. I'm very transparent and honest with my audiences. I used to contemplate and stare at it regularly, and I need to go back and do this more regularly. I look at that photo of him. He's standing up on Half Dome, looking out into the beautiful Yosemite Valley. The question I ask myself when I look at that photo is, what legacy will you leave? What legacy will you leave? I think that's really what it's about, whatever that means for you. And I believe that's the worth it. I think there are two reasons that it's worth it. Number one, in this day and age, especially in this world, we need it more than ever. Everybody needs what you have. Not everybody, you got a niche, right? But people need you. They need your heart. They need your head. They need you. And the second reason is that I believe that your legacy is worth it.